Okay, so go into the handout folder and in semester 2, you'll see exercise 13, 14, 15 color. And grab that, drag it to the desktop so you have it. And then once you're there, open it up, and inside it, you'll see the first exercise, 13. You're going to open that. Correct. So yeah, so it's this one. So here we have the color wheel, and we have the primary colors, the ones that have the P, the biggest circle. We have the secondary colors, the ones with the S, the next biggest. And then we have their intersects that are the T's. And I like this color wheel because that's actually how it works, in that in terms of getting the tertiary colors, they're a mixture of the secondary and the primary. So it makes it easy to figure out how that works. Now we're not mixing paint, we're actually just going to sample colors from this wheel. But let's do it in order so we at least get a sense of how those work. So if you were going to paint and you wanted, you were going to do a color wheel and you wanted to show all the colors, you would start with the primary colors, and those were the only ones that you'd need to put out on your little paint palette to paint with, because they're going to make all the others. So just imagine that we have our red paint out. We're going to take the eyedropper and we're going to click on it with the top circle selected and fill it. So easy peasy here. We don't have to get messy. Now the command key is the shortcut for the toolbar tool that you're using and the arrow. So if you push that key, then you can grab the next primary color easily because it will give you the black arrow. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click, and then I'm going to sample the next primary, the blue. And then once again, I'll command click, let go, sample the yellow. And then next I'm going to do the secondary colors. Those are the colors that are mixed when we mix the primaries on either side. So our red primary with our blue primary give us our violet secondary. So I'll command click to get the arrow to grab it. I'll release to get the eyedropper to sample. Command click to get the arrow to grab the next one. My blue with my yellow gives me my green secondary. So even if you are colorblind, which you very possibly there's a definite percentage in the world that are colorblind. I had a student last period who was. My husband is too, by the way. But you can still mix these colors if you know the system, because it doesn't change. It stays the same. So for the third secondary, I would mix my red primary with my yellow, and then I would get my orange. To do the remaining 6, so notice we have 3 and 3, so we made 6. The last 6 are the tertiary, the intermediate colors. Those are going to be the primary with the secondary is going to make that intersection. And you'll notice it almost will look like maybe glass, colored glass layered on top of each other, so you can see in between. So I'm going to grab that now, and I'm going to sample the red violet made with violet and red. I'm going to sample the blue violet made with violet and blue. And then the blue green made with blue and green, yellow green, yellow orange, red orange. And that's the end of that one. So that one's pretty easy. So subtractive color wheel, this deals with paint. The next one, and by the way, you can save this, last name, first name, EX13. You can go ahead and turn it in. It's right if, unless you're colorblind, you should perceive that these colors look like a mix of these two, So if it doesn't look like that, then you've done it wrong. And then once you do that, open up exercise 14. Okay, so this is the additive wheel, the one that deals with the color of light. And so our primary colors are the RGB, the red, green, blue, and we're going to do the same thing. So you're going to grab with the arrow. Now some of them on this particular one managed to get saved with no fill. See that? So if I just try to grab it here, notice it's not going to grab. You just have to grab on the edge. And then sample. So we'll do our green. We're going counterclockwise on this one. We'll do our green, our G, and now our B for blue. Then our secondaries are made by those primaries. This is the really weird one that red and green make yellow. That green and blue make cyan. That's not as weird. And then blue and red make magenta. And then our intermediate or tertiary colors are made by a mix of the two. Command clicking makes this fast. Oh, I missed a secondary there. Oh, I see what I did. Oops. I forgot to deselect. So once you have that, you're ready. Go ahead, turn it in. Name it last name, first name, EX14. I'm not going to bother saving.
You wake up in the morning, you look in the mirror, and you decide how you look or how you feel, mostly dependent upon color.
Color can affect you both physiologically and psychologically.
You can make somebody feel something with color.
It's the moment.
Color is everywhere. It's just pervasive all throughout our lifestyles, our culture. Whether or not you're verbalizing it, you're actually saying something to the world. This is me because I'm wearing this color.
Most people know color. You know color, you use it every day, you interact with it, that's how you make your way through the world. And the color perceptors in your eyes are rods and cones. Cones start with a C and they perceive color, your rods perceive grays. Color theory, as a definition, it's more the mixtures and implementation of combinations of color. Color is the umbrella under which hue, value, and chroma rest. Hue being the distinction between different colors on a wheel, from red to red-orange, so to speak. Value being light and dark, and chroma being bright and dull. The color wheel is a tool that helps us talk about the physical phenomena of light and how we perceive it and how we ultimately implement it in designs and the combinations. We now teach more based on the harmonies and contrasts and how it relates to how you utilize color. So students learn about complementary colors, which tend to be opposite one another, and clash, which is just two colors but they're one off of complementary. I think that there's been many different types of wheels, and so I say to students nowadays, I don't mind if you invent your own wheels with your own nuanced understandings of color, because you're a different human than whoever came before you, and who knows what you'll come up with that invents the future that we haven't even seen yet. So you get a lot more interaction with color nowadays on multiple levels, and people are aware of this. They know that they're affected by it soulfully, not just mentally. And you should take that strength in your soul to build your own understanding, because it is so personal, and you change.
Color for me is what I call sort of a silent language or an emotional language that we all sort of intuitively know how to speak. As we see color, we start to associate it with different things in our lives. We have 3 different types of associations: universal, cultural, and individual. Individual color preference is a really interesting dynamic. I think color trends play a part in color preference. Quite often, though, it may be associated with an experience. There are definitely universal aspects to color, and they are usually the physiological ones. So red is definitely the one that increases your heart rate when you first see it. It makes you want to move. There are some studies that actually say that you'll walk faster, you'll eat more, you'll talk more when you're, let's say, in a red room than any other color. One great example is you think of the red carpet. Well, there's a reason why the red carpet is the red carpet, and that's because it keeps the traffic flowing. Where conversely, when you see blue, the opposite will happen, so you become more calm and relaxed. I think the one that is most interesting is the cultural differences. For the most part, it's usually a learned response. So when you're very young, you might think of brown as dirty and earthy. But as time goes on, you learn to adjust those associations. So all of a sudden, when espresso and coffee became a whole new trend, brown took on a whole new association. Or when we start to think of things like recycling or environmental concerns, it's natural for us to think of green. So we develop different types of associations that we share with other human beings. And as we grow, those become more and more meaningful to us.
I've gone back through the 20th century, and I found that there were some ebbs and flows of color, and it's just an evolution of a shift, not a revolution. Color is not the place where I look first. It's the why behind it. The economic, the social, the political, the technological, environmental influences. They're all the drivers of why color is always evolving and revolving. The economic issues that we've had in recent years, people gravitate to safe colors, grounded colors, rooted in the past and rooted into the ground. So you bring up what we call organic colors. And as we get familiar with that, there comes a time where we need a pick-me-up. So take the familiar and just add a little accent of something new and give you a totally new look. Here we were with the Depression. People were so depressed they needed to put color back in their lives, so they colored glass, and that's where Depression glass comes from. Go back to the 60s and we saw the psychedelic colors coming in because of the drug culture. It was pattern on pattern, color on color, and it was just a kaleidoscope of everything happening all at once. And in the 70s we had to rest for a decade. We browned out. And remember the decoupage and almond and beige and browns of the 1970s. So in forecasting, we look at those kinds of trends, what are constant, but also something new and different for the forecast in the future.
As like a GIF artist, you can only use 256 colors.
I think the restriction is really cool. It's like something common that all GIF makers have to think about when they're making a GIF.
You work within this resolution that in today's high def you never see. So it almost created an aesthetic just because it was so constrained.
It's minimalism. It lets the viewer fill in the blanks.
It's communicating with people via imagery.
We like to experiment with different types of film. That's why you never see the same looking portrait shot.
You get like different colors that you wouldn't get with your perfect camera. Like a VHS camera, it brings out like the oranges and makes everything super saturated. You almost can't fake that kind of color because of the way the colors interact with each other. You can always make a rainbow move because there's so many colors to cycle through. You don't even have to be choosy on the colors as long as you have all of them in there.
I'm like a black and white fiend. You know, like conscious decision of not using color and making it work. Black and white is bold.
And then you throw in like a little red, it'll make that red pop just that much more.
Variety, you know, like if you see our page, if it was all color, all black and white, it wouldn't have much impact.
When it comes to colors though, you want to think of like what colors match before you even worry about what colors you can't use. And like you can make anything as long as you make it look intentional. It's like a taste of nostalgia. It's also like the challenge of trying to convey an idea in these blocks.
Usually people think picking the color for something is pretty simple, but it actually gets complex pretty quickly.
Color's emotive, and I don't think it ever stays static, and so you're looking at color in a different way of accenting it rather than changing it abruptly.
It's just that you have to learn to identify it and codify the language. How do I arrange them, and how do I speak about that arrangement so that other people understand what I'm creating or doing?
Use black and white sometimes.
Colors are just fun, man. I just want to like inspire people to make like fun stuff. It's just like hero.
Okay, so we're going to talk about color schemes here. Go ahead and open up exercise 15. Color schemes are basically arrangements that you might use in a design of any sort, and they're based on the color's position on the color wheel. And so I'm going to open up a bigger color wheel here just to kind of show you. So we have different ones. We've got in this top one is analogous, and that is basically any color that is close to another color on the wheel. So here's our wheel, right? We've got our primaries, our secondaries, but then this is what's showing all of them. So our analogous are going to be colors that are almost touching each other or are touching each other. This particular wheel has gaps. And it can be anywhere on the wheel. The next one is complementary, and those colors are directly across from each other if you're using a straight line. So you got to go directly across. You can't bend at all. So our red complement is green. It's a little easier to see on this wheel, I suppose, because this throws you off a little. But if you follow it down, notice our violet's complement is yellow. Now those colors are really kind of interesting because if you use them really bright, totally saturated at their brightest intensity, when you place them next to each other, they visually will vibrate. And so it's almost hard on the eye in a way because of that vibration. But that vibration will also command your attention. So it's a way to get people's attention. We're so distracted in this day and age because we have so many things we're doing, especially with all the technology. And advertisers want to grab you. So that is one strategy that they use, colors that will vibrate to draw your eye to them. The other cool thing about the complementary colors is that if you place them, or if you mix one into the other, it will suck the intensity out of the other color. So I remember when I was in high school and I was in a painting class and we had to paint a still life of our choice with only complementary colors, and I chose a banana and I used yellow and purple. And to make all of the shades in the banana, all of those darker kind of earthy brownish yellowy colors, I just added a little touches of violet into that yellow to create that. So if you're trying to do a landscape, rather than mixing black into your browns and your colors, your reddish colors, say you're doing, an area out west where it's got a lot of really reddish earth, then you could mix in bits of green into the red to get those earthy colors. So that's a strategy that painters use with the complementary colors. The next one is split complementary. And basically with that one, you're looking directly across, but instead of picking the complement, you're picking the color on either side. So it kind of makes like a peace sign symbol. So my violet, instead of choosing yellow, I'm going to choose yellow-green and yellow-orange. And that would be a split complementary color scheme. The tetrad, you choose the one on either side of both complements. So instead of a peace sign, I'm adding it to the top too. So I'm doing my blue-violet, red-violet, yellow-green, yellow-orange would be a tetrad. Of course, remember these can be spun anywhere on the wheel. So, you know, they don't stay stationary. The last one is triads, and we've already been talking about triads in that we have a primary triad, we have a secondary triad, or you could make a tertiary triad too if you pick 3, as long as they make an equilateral triangle. So if I chose my blue-green, then I would go to my red-violet, and then I could go to my yellow-orange. All right, now the other thing we're going to look at here is not just the pure color. We're going to look at the tints, the shades, and the tones. So look for a moment down to the lower right of your paper, and you'll see the biggest circle here is the pure color. The tint of the color is the color plus white. The tone of the color is the color plus gray. And the shade is the color plus black. And if I go into my color picker and I'm looking at that color picker, the upper right corner is the pure color. As I go across the top to the left, I'm doing tints because I'm only mixing white there. If I go down straight to the bottom, I'm getting shades because I'm only mixing in black. If I go anywhere at a diagonal, I'm doing tones, and that's because I'm mixing with gray instead, black plus white. So that's how this little color picker works in relation to tints and shades and tones. All right, we're going to basically sample these, but you're going to put in the tints, shades, and tones. So as you go to do them, you'll grab the black arrow, and then go ahead and click the eyedropper. You know, grab your first circle, click your eyedropper, and decide what analogous colors you're going to make. Your analogous colors can be anywhere on the wheel. They just have to be next to each other. So, you know, you can start wherever. Don't copy me. Do your own thing. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab red-violet just for the heck of it. And then I could either go to the left or right on the wheel, clockwise or counterclockwise. And I would pick my next one. Oops, wait, I need to grab, maybe I'll grab red. And then I go and grab the third one, and I'll do the red-orange. So there's my analogous scheme. Because the analogous colors are close together on the wheel, they're more harmonious because they have a lot in common. So, you know, and it really depends. If they're really intensely bright when you mix them, they're not going to be quite as calm. But generally, if you mix those down, they're going to be really calm colors together because they have a lot in common. So next, I'm going to hold Command down, and I'm going to go and sample the tints and the tones and the shades of these colors that I've chosen. And if you got that down by now, the whole command click thing, this goes pretty fast. Otherwise, it goes way slower. Oops. Okay, so, you know, anyways, keep going and get all of these tint, shades, and tones. Complementary colors, you can look at the little center line of rows to see what those are doing. And I don't know that I'm going to record doing all of these, but basically, you know, for complement, we want to make a straight line across the wheel. And then, of course, the tint, shades, and tones are going to be just the ones that flow along there, so pretty easy. Split comp. We're going to choose a color, and then we're going to go straight across, but we're not going to pick that complement. We're going to pick the color on either side. Tetrad, so that makes a peace sign. tetrad, we're going to do the same thing, but we're not going to grab any of the complements. We're going to grab the colors to the sides of them. So if I wanted to do a yellow-purple complement tetrad, I would be doing yellow-green, yellow-orange, blue-violet, red-violet. And then you would finish all of these. I'm not going to take the time to do that. Finally, that triad is going to make an equilateral triangle on the wheel. And you could do the primary triad, the secondary triad if you want, or an intermediate color triad. And you're basically just going to make that triangle. So get all of those. And then you would do, once again, the tints, tones, and shades.